Welcome to Hockey Night in New York, where Islanders hockey always reigns supreme. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, Hockey Night in New York is your home for all things Isles. Now, let's drop the puck and get this party started.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is Hockey Night in New York. Welcome to the program, everyone. It is Sunday, November 5th, 2023. Coming to you live from Florida Media in Rockville Center. Another big show coming up for you tonight. Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports and the brand new hockey show, What Chaos, will be joining us later to talk a little Isles, to talk a little Bruins, since the Isles will be matching up again against them later in the week. So with that, Stefen Rosner is here with me always. My name is Sean Cuthbert. Stefen, how are you?
I'm fantastic.
You're fantastic.
Yeah, I haven't blown any leads recently, so I'm pretty good.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I'm doing all right as well. So before we jump in, I want to remind you all that we are happy to be presented by Blue Line Deli and Bagel. Satisfy your hunger at 719 Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Check out the menu at BlueLineDeli.com. Also happy to be sponsored by Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd and unplug your game at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Also happy to be sponsored by Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law, ready to fight for you. Check them out at razorandkniff.com. That's RAZERANDKENNIFF.com. So, with all the pleasantries out of the way, Stefen Rosner, the New York Islanders are 5-2-3. They have 13 points in 10 games played. They are tied for third in the Metro with the New Jersey Devils. They've run into some trouble here giving up leads recently, particularly at home. What do you make of this last week for the New York Islanders?
Yeah, blowing leads is certainly a problem.
It's been an issue.
What I will say is they've blown 4 2-goal leads in 7 home games, but they haven't lost any of those games in regulation. I think it's a huge thing to point out. Point, no pun intended. They're 2-0-2 in those games, but again, I think the biggest thing is, last year, it takes 82 games to get in. And after they were eliminated in Game 6 to Carolina, Barzal said, during his end-of-the-year presser, the games early in the year are so important because he's so frustrated with having to just battle and grind every night just to get in. So he literally said the first 20, 30, 40 games are so important because we need to get the points then. Well, the Islanders are doing the exact opposite with that. And again, Carolina, you had 3-0 lead in that game on home ice. Yeah. With Sorokin in goal, you got to win those games. And the fact that they are consistently blowing the leads, whether it's 2 or 3 goals, whatever it is, blowing it, and then in overtime, they can't win in overtime.
Yeah, it's weird. I said this on Twitter. Like, through 10 games, it seems like they reversed that trend from last season where they were coming out of the gate slow. They were giving up leads, and they were, basically chasing games and trying to scratch and claw for points, which, they were able to do because obviously they won a lot of comeback games last year and they got into the playoffs in Game 82, as you said. But it was still an ongoing issue for pretty much the majority of the season where they just couldn't get it together. So you fast forward to this season, and they're scoring the first, sometimes second, sometimes third goal in a lot of these games so far. So they've definitely seemed to have solved that in the early going here. The problem is holding on to those leads. And I guess it's a little bit more unfamiliar territory for this team because, they were chasing so much last year. But at the end of the day, like you said, these are games that you got to close out. These are games that you got to win. You got to be able to take that second point, and you have to hope that, this isn't a situation you look back on later in the season and say if they didn't squander those points early on, they might have ended up in a better spot, whether it's the playoffs, home ice, whatever it is. So I guess, now we have to look at what's the issue here. Why can't this team hold on to leads? I'm looking at these games, particularly last night against the Hurricanes, and, especially when you got a guy like Adam Pelech out of the lineup, I think they sat back too much, and they let the Canes come to them. And obviously they struggled mightily, especially in the third period, getting out of their zone and just chipping pucks away. And you saw all the chances that the Hurricanes had. And, that's from my viewpoint, that it seems like they're trying to sit back too much in these leads where maybe they should have a little bit more of a killer instinct and go for that fourth goal, that fifth goal.
It's ironic because they did the same thing in Game 6 and blew the lead and lost that game. And you thought after the game, Lou Lamoriello said, I think during his press conference, maybe a month or later, and goes, that wasn't the plan. He doesn't know why the Islanders sat back. Yeah. And again, it's a different Carolina team, 5 brand new players. No Brett Pesce, and that's a huge loss for them. Same way the Islanders losing Pelech's huge. Right. That they did it again. Yeah. And they paid the price. Now, you said it too, strong starts. They've outscored opponents 7-3 in the first period. but they've been outscored 10-6. This is on home ice.
Right.
They've been outshot 429 to 401 in the third period.
Okay.
You know, that again, they're just sitting back. That's not a huge discrepancy.
And they usually give up more shots than they get in a game. So that doesn't bother me so much, but go ahead.
101 shot attempts for the Hurricanes last night.
That's a problem.
And Lane after the game...
Compared to like 30-something for the Isles, right?
Yeah, and then Lane after the game said, well, this is what the Hurricanes do. Yes, the Hurricanes get pucks on goal. That's what they do. They try to get shots. 101. That is a ridiculous number for, again, it's one thing, you talk quality over quantity, but they're high danger chances. And, Sorokin's been hit. We'll talk about him a little bit. Sorokin's been hit a lot with, he's not making those big saves. He's not doing that. I saw that so much on Twitter today. And again, I get it. 3.12 goals.
I don't know what games these guys are watching. These people are watching.
The stats, which not all of it.
He's already made like nearly 10 highlight reel saves since the season started. Like one per game.
3.12 goals against average, 911 save percentage. But you look back at that game yesterday, and it's going to go under the radar. He made a ridiculous paddle save late in that third period. Ridiculous paddle save. Without that, you were thinking, okay, I think it was 3-2 at the time, Islanders. And you're thinking, you don't have to remember that goal. They're going to win this, right? And they go to overtime. You're like, wow, they could have actually lost this game in regulation.
Sure.
And Sorokin after game, I want to read a quote.
Yeah.
Sorokin doesn't show emotion. It's stop puck. Doesn't matter wherever it is.
Right, stop puck.
After the game, this is what he had to say.
Yeah.
Very frustrated. Second good game in a row for me where they win the third period, they as in the opponents, and we lost the game. And you could talk about him, maybe cheating in overtime, but these games should not be going there.
I wouldn't even say that. I wouldn't even fault him for that winner in overtime. In fact, after Nikish dished the pass off to Aho, he kind of set a pick on Nelson because that's what happened. Nelson was trying to cover Aho as he was coming in from outside the blue line, and he bumps into Nikish, and that's why he gets all that room to come in and just take that shot on Sorokin. So, I mean, he had Sorokin dead to rights as long as he put a good shot on. He did. He put it right through the wickets, and he gets that goal. So I wouldn't even fault Sorokin for the overtime winner. I mean, that's just an unfortunate situation where they couldn't get the coverage because you had, I think Fashing that was following Nikish after he made the pass, and they just had all that open ice. But at the end of the day, look, I don't fault Sorokin for less. And it's nice to see a little fire out from even to the point. I'm surprised to the point where, I mean, that's in a sense a real like kind of backwards way of calling out his team there and saying, hey, I had another good game here and we couldn't close this one out. So he's starting to get frustrated. It's not just the fans watching the game. So it's a big issue for this team. And look, it's a negative. It's a problem. We're going to talk a lot more about it, especially in regards to Lane Lambert, because I know a lot of his name's getting mentioned a lot in social media. But I'll say this is maybe it's never good, but maybe it's a good thing that it's happening in the early going here. They're still getting points despite this happening, and hopefully this is something that they can work out for the next 72 games. It doesn't mean they're going to, but if it's something that they can kind of focus on now because it's happening now, perhaps as the season goes on, this is something they can nip in the bud now so it's not so much of a problem going forward. And
there are so many positives, too, that people are just overlooking. First off, Noah Dobson, 3 goals, 7 assists, 10 games, 10 points. I mean, they've been waiting for this, and he's been much better defensively.
Yes.
So he's not sacrificing the defense for the offense. We'll get to Holmstrom later, but my God, the confidence. He seems to have figured it out.
He looked like a different player this week.
And like I said, we'll get to that. Sebastian Aho, though, is taking strides the whole season. Palmieri being back healthy is such a game changer.
Healthy, and he's nearly a point per game guy now. You look at that whole line, I wanted to focus on them a little bit too. I think you got 8 points from Palmieri, 7 from Nelson. You got 5 assists from Engvall. I mean, that's a 41-point pace for him, which probably would be a career high without looking at a stat sheet. So that line's looking good too. There are a lot of positives to take, but I do know it's Islander country, and I do know it's very easy to focus on the negatives, and that's good. Hold the team to a higher account, set the bar high. Everybody wants to see a winner. But at the end of the day, 5-2-3, in the mix. I think they're 4 points out of first place in the Metro. They got a game in hand on the Rangers. They got games in hand on a couple other teams. Now, that doesn't mean if they keep playing the way they're playing, it's going to continue all right. They definitely have some things that they got to work out. But we're not talking about a 3, 4, 5 game losing streak here. We're talking about some issues that they got to work out before they keep playing more of the Carolinas, the Bostons, the Minnesotas, even though they're struggling, that are coming up now. I thought the game against Carolina last night was going to be a nice little litmus test for this team. Finally, to make a statement. Carolina struggling a little bit and not playing to the level that everybody expected them to out of the gate here. They're still kind of finding their way here. But I thought if they could hold on and get the 2 points against Carolina last night, maybe everybody exhales exhales a little bit and says, okay, they finally beat a team, in the upper echelon of the league. This is a Stanley Cup favorite. And unfortunately, they collapse in the third period, and it leaves more question marks, and everybody's still concerned about where this team's going.
Could be worse. Could be the San Jose Sharks, who allowed 10 goals in back. They got to get relegated. We got to add that. I mean, I think, shout out Jake the Snake. Jake the Snake said relegation. I mean, I think no joke, because an AHL is the second best league in the world. There's got to be an AHL team that could beat this team is horrific. Horrific.
I mean, we got a break for Pete, but, I think it was part of the design to, fail for whoever the top pick is going to be next summer. I don't even know who that is. I know San Jose is in a thick rebuild, but I didn't know it was going to be back-to-back 10-goal bad.
It's one it's one thing to lose. It's how they're losing. And the most ironic thing is that they couldn't do this last year and get Bedard. They waited until after Bedard's gone, then be this. Yeah,
I don't know if there's some genre-defining player that's coming up.
It's not Bedard.
Right. Generational player, I should say. But it's not Bedard. But all right, well, it's 8:13, so we got a break. We got Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports joining us and the brand new What Chaos Hockey Show joining us. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Pete Blackburn will join us.
I don't want to hear it. It's over. I can't believe they fell short again.
Yeah, but they played so well. They made it to the semifinals 2 years in a row.
The semifinals aren't the cup. God damn it, I hate those Lightning.
They'll get another shot at it next year.
I don't even want to talk about it anymore, all right? They lost, okay? Let me just sit here and enjoy the one thing that makes me a little bit happy. This fresh, delicious, tasty, meaty, turkey-filled Blue Line combo. I eat 3 every day to help keep me strong.
Hey, Donnie, can I have one of those?
Coming right up. Talk about a blast from the Blue Line.
Blue Line Deli and Bagels. Our goal is to make you a hero.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is hockey night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow @HockeyNightNY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Thanks for giving some time to our sponsors. Ready to talk more Isles? The train rolls on right here on Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The train rolls on here at Hockey Night in New York. And join us right now from Bally Sports and co-host of the brand new What Chaos Hockey Show, Pete Blackburn. Pete, thanks so much for joining us tonight, man. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get started on the Isles, on the Bruins, and what else is going on in the league here, why don't you just tell us a little bit about this new show, What Chaos you got going on, man?
Yeah, it's a daily show, daily NHL show, Monday through Thursday. First, we'll be on YouTube live every day at noon Eastern, and then it'll turn into a podcast. But basically, the elevator pitch is that it's going to be a very fun, very loose approach to covering hockey. Basically, kind of the way, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I like to have fun and make jokes and be kind of a clown sometimes, and that'll be the vibe of the show. And it'll have a lot of interviews with players and just kind of goofing around with them, trying to get it's mainly a vehicle to try to drive personalities in hockey, and whether that's players or media or whatever. That's going to be the goal. Our first guest was Brad Marchand. He was perfect. Just the ideal guest for to start off the show in terms of him fooling around with us. And then I guess I'll give you guys a scoop. We have Connor Bedard on Tuesday.
Oh, nice.
Which will be great. So yeah, very excited. The show's been awesome so far, and the launch is I'm really excited.
Well, that's excellent, man. Looking forward to checking it out, and best of luck with it, of course. So let's dive into what's going on in the league right now. I want to start with you to get kind of your your outsider's point of view on the New York Islanders, because we kind of joke about it around here all the time, how anybody outside the island always has the Isles pegged for bottom of the league. They're no good. They're boring. Is that the vibe you're getting out of those guys, or what are you seeing out of them so far?
If you'd asked me like 2 weeks ago, I would have, pushed back on that. And I would have said, I like them. Like, I think they're a team that always hangs around, and they're always kind of a problem and an annoyance. They're not a perfect team, but they're always hanging around. They're a respectable team. Now like this season, they just haven't really registered on my radar all that much. And they just kind of, I don't want to say that they're playing like boring hockey. I just think that they're kind of like a boring middle of the pack team as far as what we've seen this year. And obviously they'd be a lot more interesting if they could hold a lead, I guess. And so, I'm not going to trash them. I think it's probably more of a rickety start than you'd like to see from that group. But I still think that they're, especially in a metropolitan division that I think is like, pretty split between like respectable teams and then just like garbage at the bottom. I don't think that they're in the garbage at the bottom.
Okay.
Pete, so so obviously last year, Sorokin and Ullmark fighting for the Vezina. Ullmark gets it. What do you think of Sorokin, when you watch him play?
He's one of the best goalies in the league. I don't think there's any pushing back against that. He's been great to start this year so far. Like, I don't think there's any conversation there. He's just one of the best goalies in the league.
For sure, Pete. And let's pivot over to the Bruins. You have some familiarity with those guys. So I got to be honest, man. They lost their top two centers going into this season, and I thought the bottom was going to fall out a little bit. And, of course, here they are picking up right where they left off last year. They're winning, 98% of their games to this point. They finally dropped their first one in regulation to Detroit last night. What still has the motor running for this team?
It's the back end. Like, their defense has been really good. Goaltending has been once again top of the league. Like that's what you need to win first and foremost in this league, and they still got it. And did I think that they were going to start off the season 9-0-1? Absolutely not. Yeah. Did I think that they were going to be better than most people gave them credit for? Yes, I did. And I thought that they would be like second in the Atlantic, just because like I said, back end still awesome. Up front, a lot of issues, at least like during the offseason. They really stumbled into a like magic beans with Matthew Patra being their second line center. He has been like a godsend for a team that desperately needed a top six center to come out of nowhere. And look at that. It happened. He has been great. He's been exactly what they needed. And I don't think that it's like a short-term thing. This kid is the real deal, and he has been awesome in what we've seen from him so far.
Yeah, and you got Zach in there, Coyle putting up the points, and James Van Riemsdyk seems to have a little bit of a revitalization of his career here. What does he have? I think 7-8 points now through the start of the season here so far.
I said it before opening night. I was like, I cannot wait for the James Van Riemsdyk redemption tour because it just seems so obvious to me. Like, the Bruins have needed a guy who just cleans up garbage around the crease for a while. He has made an entire career out of being that guy. And for him to escape Philly and kind of what was going on there, and for him to kind of get the chains broken off, because obviously it didn't go, the past few years haven't gone the way that he's wanted. And I talked to him about it, and he was just like, it is so great to be free of that and have kind of a rebirth. And I just think it was a perfect situation for him to come in, prove himself. And he hasn't been perfect to start the season, but he's been James Van Riemsdyk. He cleans up in front of the net, and he'll find like 20-25 goals this year.
Pete, the talk on the island is always about the Islanders' goaltending tandem with Sorokin and Varlamov, but how special? I mean, we see the hugs after the Bruins win, but how special is their goalie tandem with Ullmark and Swayman?
It's been unbelievable, and it has worked, I think, more perfect than anybody could have expected, even the front office. When when it looked like Swayman was ready to be the guy and they signed Ullmark, I was like, I have no idea why you do that, why you go out and spend on a sort of long-term deal, a big commitment to a goaltender. Even though I like Linus Ullmark and he had a few good years in Buffalo, I didn't understand it, and now I understand it. We are transitioning to, I think, an NHL in which you need two good goaltenders at least to put together really deep runs and have sustainability. And the Bruins were ahead of that. And I give them a lot of credit, and I give a lot of credit to both goaltenders. They've split the net so evenly and unselfishly this entire time. They are truly the best of friends, which is a pretty ideal situation if you're the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, it's pretty familiar territory for us here on the island with Sorokin and Varlamov, both really good buds. Obviously, Sorokin getting the bulk of the starts, but it's good to see that they kind of have that relationship. But how much does Montgomery play into the success of this team, obviously with the run last year and now the start here? I mean, he obviously was out of the league a little bit after his tenure in Dallas, and he comes back, has just such a phenomenal season last year. They're doing great this year. What kind of role is he playing with this team?
Yeah, I think it's a huge role. And I think there are two major factors about Montgomery's presence. Is number one, he's great in the room. Like the guys obviously really respect him. He's a great players coach, both on a personal level and a professional level. I think he is, from everything that I've seen from that guy, he is just unbelievable dude. And also the freedom that he gives the players to mess up, to grow as players, and kind of like the leash that he gives them, I think really freed them up starting last year, because Bruce Cassidy, who's a great coach in his own right, is really tough on his players. And when they make mistakes, they will hear about it. Not only in the room, they'll hear about it in front of a microphone after games and stuff like that. Montgomery takes a little bit of a different approach, where he's a bit softer with these guys. Obviously he lets them hear it when they need it behind closed doors, but he allows a certain amount of freedom for guys to kind of spread their wings. And we really started to see that last year with the defensemen that they had on this team, the freedom to join the rush, to activate, to kind of play down low, really kind of raise the game of a lot of the guys they have on the blue line. And that made a world of difference for that offense and that team in general. So he's been the perfect coach for this team and for this group.
Pete, if memory serves correctly, I think you were on the island for the Islanders Bruins series. Am I correct with that?
Yeah, sure was. I was there for the last game of the series, which was quite a fun time for me to be in that building.
So despite the result not going in the Bruins' favor, what was that experience like, being at a playoff game at the Coliseum?
It was awesome. Like it sort of reinforced everything that I had heard about the Coliseum, which was that it's a dump, but it's your dump, and it has a certain amount of charm and energy to it that I definitely felt. I mean, being in the parking lot before the game and getting to experience the tailgate and sort of the culture that is Islanders hockey was incredible. It was like one of the first times that I'd ever tailgated a hockey game, and it was very cool. I really like the blue collar aspect of that fan base. I really love everybody going to like Borelli's after the game and just kind of meeting up there. Like it just definitely seemed like a real tight knit community and like a great culture. And you can tell that like from afar, you can kind of feel like the little brother aspect of like the defensiveness that comes to the Islanders. And, it registered with me, but then when I got there, I understood it, because like it is a smaller community, and like you can tell that everybody that's an Islanders fan cares deeply about that team. And that's the good stuff, man. That's the stuff that like warms my heart. And so Islanders fans do have a special place in my heart for sure.
That's great to hear, Pete. And to bounce off of that, has the perspective of this team and I guess this franchise kind of changed or altered a bit since they got out of that building? Now they have a primetime arena in UBS. They're kind of like corporate hockey now. You walk into the building and you're paying the $19 for a beer now. Where at the Coliseum, you can maybe get one for $12, which is somehow reasonable in this world. But
how long do you have to wait for the bathrooms now? Because my trip to the Coliseum was like, you got to go to the bathroom with 12 minutes left in a period if you want to make it out.
You have to be a seasoned veteran at the Coliseum to know when to go to hit the restroom. That's for sure. But that's even a problem that they've solved at UBS. But yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if the perspective has kind of changed. That they're kind of like a little bit, even though they're the little brother to the Rangers and whatnot, but are they more of a big boy franchise now because they have this building and everybody who kind of comes in and out of it seems to rave about it? And have you been there yourself?
I haven't been there yet. It's on my list, and I'm definitely going to get there this year. But like the legitimacy factor, I think, is absolutely there, because number one, the team's been good for a little while, and that's the first thing that you need. But again, like you mentioned, like you have a home, and it's a nice home, and it's a consistent home. You're not splitting home games between two buildings, one of them being a dump, one of them being a basketball arena.
Right.
So like, yeah, the legitimacy for the Islanders is certainly there. The fandom is certainly there. The team is there. And it probably also helps that the Coyotes now play in a college arena that holds like 8,000 people. So
Right.
even if you were playing in a dump or a basketball arena, you'd be like, at least we're not there.
It's so true. It's so true. I mean, it's honestly, it's still surreal to me that they're even playing in this arena. Like, I feel like at some point somebody's going to pinch me. I'm going to wake up and they're either moved to Kansas City or they're still in the Coliseum. But I wanted to go back to the Bees for a second. I mean, you just talk about how well they're playing now, how amazing they were last season. What happened in that series against the Florida Panthers when they hit that freight train known as Matt Tkachuk and the Panthers in that first round?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a combination of things. It was unforced errors. They shot themselves in the foot quite a bit with a lot of the turnovers that they had in their defensive zone. Ullmark wasn't good, and they stuck with him too long. It sort of blew my mind, some of the coaching decisions made by Jim Montgomery in that series where, the goalie rotation had worked for them all season long. And when you had a 3-1 series lead, and you had a perfect opportunity to go to Swayman to get Ullmark some rest, just stuck with Ullmark and tried to ride it out, and then went to Swayman in game 7, and it was too late at that point. Bergeron was rushed back, and I know it's very hard to say no to Patrice Bergeron when he says that he's ready to play, but it seemed very clear that when he returned to play, he was not very effective. He was not himself. And I think as a coach, you step in and you have to make the right decision for your team, even if it is standing up to your captain and that veteran presence to be like, listen, rest up, get right for series 2, because we're going to need you for that series. And so it was just kind of like a perfect storm of things going wrong in that series. And, obviously Florida seized those opportunities. Matt Tkachuk stepped up. Yeah. And Sergei Bobrovsky was great too. So like, it was a perfect storm of things going wrong for them.
So you said you just interviewed Marchand, and that was a great episode. I guess obviously him being named the captain now, do you get a sense from him in terms of that, yeah, this guy's a born leader?
Not a born leader. I think that he's learned, and I think that he's certainly well respected for good reason by a lot of those guys in the room. He is a great guy. He's a great dude. Obviously a great player. I know that from a national perspective, there's a lot of yeah, I got a question. Screw that guy. Screw that guy. He's not a good dude. But I'll tell you, he is, and he definitely crosses the line, and he'll tell you that to your face. He knows that he's done some dumb crap over the years, but he's a really good dude, and I think that he's well respected for both his play on the ice and who he is off of it in that room, and so it kind of made him the leading candidate to get the C this year.
Fair enough. But yeah, Stefen, I'm glad you brought it up, because I have to say, like, I guess, I don't know, did they have a lot of options? I'm not sure. Maybe you can tell me. But, when they named him captain, I was like, huh. I was like, wow. I was like, okay, that guy's had some questionable hits over the years. But, like, I'm like, this guy went from face licker to captain of the Boston Bruins. I was like, how does that happen?
Trust me, I was. It is surreal to think about, even from a Bruins fan perspective. I never would have guessed that he'd be a captain of this team. Not because like he's. I just didn't think that he'd ever be in line. I didn't see him lasting long enough past Patrice Bergeron to seize the C. And I really did think that they still might give it to Charlie McAvoy. Okay. Instead of Marchand, just because it would last a little bit longer. Obviously, Marchand's towards the end of his career. Yeah. But, when they did give it to him, I was like, wow, they gave it to him. But, like, the shock wore off pretty quickly because, again, he is qualified for that gig.
Well, Pete, it's been a ton of fun, man. I really appreciate you joining us here tonight. And best of luck with What Chaos, man. Can't wait to watch it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This was fun.
You got it, bud. Take care.
Thanks, Pete.
All right, folks, that was Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports and What Chaos, the brand new hockey show on YouTube. You can check that out Monday to Thursday. I'm going to do that myself.
Me too.
All right, so, folks, I want to thank you all for hanging out with us here at Hockey Night in New York at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Before we take a break, I want to tell you a little bit about our friends at Main Street Board Game Cafe in Huntington Village on Long Island's North Shore. Games for sale and for open play, food and drink, beer and wine, fun and friends. Bring the magic of phones down, eyes up, tabletop board games to your family. Our staff will help you find the right game from old favorites to the hottest new releases. We have everything from strategic to easy party games. Get off your screens for a night your family will remember. Looking for meetups to join? Our Magic the Gathering, Dungeons & Dragons, Lorcana, and organized play communities are welcoming for all. We also do parties and corporate events located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Go to mainstboardgamecafe.com for more information. Main Street Board Game Cafe. Find your crowd, unplug your game. With that, thank you once again for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. We'll be right back.
New York Islanders fans, Sunday night is Hockey Night in New York. Whether you were raised at the barn in Uniondale or born in the stable at Belmont, tune in to Hockey Night in New York. Catch us live from Floored Media in Rockville Center, Sunday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, as we cover all things Islanders at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. All episodes are also available on YouTube and all your favorite podcast providers. And for all you social butterflies, you can follow at Hockey Night NY on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram for all the latest updates. Hockey Night in New York, the best night of the week for any Islanders fan. Hey there, welcome back. We missed you too. Now kick up your feet and settle back in to Hockey Night in New York.
That's right, folks. Kick up your feet. Settle back into Hockey Night in New York. We're talking New York Islander hockey, and we are going to continue things with the unanimously loved Lane Lambert, who everybody's talking about on social media these days. Despite the fact that they're 5-2-3, that they're in the mix in the Metro, there are a lot of gripes out there, and Stefen and I are going to talk about it a little bit. Stefen, we talked about the blown leads and whatnot before Pete joined us. How much does that rest on Lane Lambert's shoulders?
Yeah, I think, again, this is the concerning part, is because this is a team under Barry Trotz that all these little things they're struggling to do right now, they had no problem doing under Trotz. And again, you look at it and say, well, it's mostly the same team, so what's changed? Well, clearly, Lane's not putting enough of an emphasis on these things, or these players would be able to grasp it. Again, these are not different players. Most of them are the same. So, yeah, I think it does come down to coaching. I think also you have to remember it's not just what Lane telling players what to do on the ice, but it's certain line changes, certain cutting minutes. And I think that's what we should start, because late in games, Lane is cutting the bench, and especially the defense. And, we talked about it before the show, but you were without Scott Mayfield, who eats minutes.
Right.
And, okay, you have Samuel Bolduc up here, and Bolduc's just getting his leash pulled late in, or even the middle, late third periods where he's not playing, and Lane's running 5 defensemen. And it's very tough when you're already down a guy like Mayfield, who kills a ton of penalties, where you have Dobson playing on the penalty kill. Players playing out of position to fill that role, and then you lose Adam Pelech now. And again, you're running essentially 5D. So I have some notes on Bolduc here. Again,
okay,
I think he's looked better, but he's not getting those minutes. And
he's still raw.
Correct.
He's still
and
raw.
The issue the Islanders have now is he's not waiver exempt. So if the Islanders wanted to send him down and call somebody up, like I know Robin Sell had a fantastic game for Bridgeport today, and this is one of those where this is the time for him to have big games, because you never know. But I look back at all the home games that Bolduc's played in, and he's been benched in all of them. So I just want to start quickly. I'll rattle them off here. And against the Yotes, he didn't play the final 12-26. Against the Avalanche, he didn't play the final 16-45. Against Ottawa, he didn't play the final 11-42. Against Detroit, he didn't play the final 12-05. And last night, he didn't play the final 19 minutes and 24 seconds of that game. That is just putting... Again, these are also games where the Islanders took a ton of penalties and things like that, where you are essentially running 5 defensemen. And my mindset is, if you really don't have trust in Bolduc, not even late in the thirds, in the third period at all... You have an extra forward on the bench in Gaudreau. You have an extra forward in Wahlstrom. If you're really going to do that, why not give your forwards a little bit of break? Because we talk about defense and everyone thinks about, it's just the defensemen. It's the forwards playing defense in their own zone, where you guys like Fashing or even Gaudreau, who are smart, where maybe if you run 13 forwards and 5D, you'll get more out of that than benching Bolduc. And I think that's the biggest concern, because we talked about it too, is... Sure, Dobson's racking over 24 minutes, whatever it is. Top defensemen play over 25 minutes. It happens.
Yeah.
The problem is the discrepancy and when Bolduc is getting pulled. Because I asked Lane after the game, I said, what does Bolduc have to do to earn more minutes. And
Yeah.
he didn't really answer the question. And again, I think it's more up to Bolduc to make more of a statement. But the problem is you're just putting so much pressure on your forwards now because, less defense struggles to get out of the zone. Now your forwards need to help out more. And then Sorokin and Varlamov. I mean, again, when the defense are tired, that means less chances they're making plays, which means more shots on Sorokin and Varlamov, more wearing them down. I just think that's the biggest issue right now is the discrepancy between minutes, because essentially you're killing your defense and then you're killing your goaltending.
Yeah, and to play devil's advocate a little bit, I mean, maybe that has a little bit to do with why this team is struggling to hold on to leads, because they're spreading their defensemen too thin as far as, tiring them out, because as you've noted, he's sitting on the bench in the third period at the end of the game, which means the rest of the guys are getting out there a little more than they were earlier on. So they're obviously, tiring out a little bit more in the third period. I mean, does that absolve Lambert and the coaching staff for these blown leads? No, of course not. But at the same time, it could just be another one of those factors where, yes, the injuries to Mayfield and Pelech, of course, don't help. Those are guys you want. Those are two guys you definitely want out there protecting leads. Those are guys that would be munching minutes in the third period had they been around in those games. But it's still a bit of an issue, and the Islanders are between a rock and a hard place with Bolduc, because if they send him down, he still has upside. He still has promise. This is a guy who can still figure it out. You hear it all the time. It takes some defensemen longer than others to kind of get their act together. Now, obviously, he's has some issues. Certainly, there's an issue with confidence with him, and I get it. He's being pulled from games. He's not being shown a lot of confidence from the staff, and it's kind of a chicken or the egg thing where he hasn't done enough to earn it, and the coaching staff isn't giving it to him to feel better about himself, right? So he kind of has to dig deep, look within himself a little bit here and figure it out on his own. But they can't send him down because he's probably going to get claimed, and they don't want to risk that because they still have high hopes for this guy. The problem is they bet on him before the season started. The bet didn't work out. And now the injuries came early, and they came to important key guys, in Mayfield and Pelech, where, they can't trust Bolduc eating up those minutes that those guys are giving up. So it's spreading the rest of the D out, and we're seeing this situation where they're getting caught in their own zone. Is it because they're fatigued? Sure could be.
Yeah, and remember last year around the deadline, the Islanders had a couple of $1 million in cap space and chose not to use it. They ran Bolduc in the playoffs when Romanov got hurt, and that, again, that's a tough situation for a rookie to be in, especially against a Hurricane team like that. It backfires. Romanov healthy enough to play. Realistically, probably wasn't completely healthy. We know he had the surgery this summer. And again, this is another chance this summer where they could have traded contracts. They got rid of Bailey's contract. Obviously, they waived Ross Johnson. There was cap space to be had, even if it was a waiver claim, to bring in a veteran defenseman, because they didn't have to start Bolduc on the NHL roster. I think realistically the idea was they're hoping that before the season starts, they're hoping Bolduc beats Aho out for the starting job. And that didn't happen.
Right.
Aho was fantastic. And now you're seeing the issue is with when you're cutting Bolduc back, you're also cutting back the minutes of his pairing. I mean, Bolduc and Aho are not, Aho deserves to play more. But because they had him paired with Bolduc, you don't trust that pairing. You're not playing that pairing. And now Mayfield played with Bolduc last game. Again, Mayfield's not 100% either. It looked like he aggravated his other ankle or leg yesterday early in that game.
Yeah.
And again, it's just weighing and putting a lot more pressure on the D. Again, a D that's also struggled defensively this year. It's not like they've been perfect and now the injuries are... they didn't start off strong at all. I mean, we talk about the chances and the trading chances and how every game it seems like the Islanders are getting outchanced and you have to rely on... I mean, Varlamov's been incredible. He's been consistent, but better than Sorokin in terms of just positioning and everything like that. But
3 games.
But but it's crazy what Varlamov's doing. But again, there's so much pressure on these goalies, and we saw last year. Sorokin had to be brilliant last year. The Islanders were not making the playoffs, and it showed fatigue. And he won't admit it. The team, no one's going to admit that, but he was tired. Right. And at least this year, if Varlamov's going to have the success he has, maybe you could give Sorokin some rests here or there. But at the same time, if the goaltending is so exhausted by the end of the year, you're not going to get them at their best in the playoffs. And right now, this Islander team is proving that they need their goaltenders at the best every game in order to get 2 points or 1.
So I guess with that, I mean, do you take the risk of giving Bolduc more minutes, hope that he does all right out there so that the other guys can be a little fresher in the third period? I mean, what's the solution?
I think you made your bed with Bolduc being here, and you kind of got to line it. Though,
okay.
Again, I personally, I'm
roll
not
the dice a little bit.
I'm not the coach. I'm not on the bench, but I haven't, he didn't look bad to me. It's not like he's every game. It's like, oh, there's one play where he needs to sit, things like that. It's just
he's had some shaky moments
for sure.
There's no doubt.
but you want him to learn, right? And that was the argument the last year of Trotz where, Wallstrom was getting benched every game. And you said, that's not the way for a young kid to learn. And you saw last year when Lambert, maybe he pulled their sad veterans, but, Wallstrom was getting the chance to play. Young guys were getting the chance to play. And this year it's with Bolduc. Again, I don't think he's been egregious enough. Again, you have no choice right now. You're down Pellick. You need someone to eat minutes. And I don't think him sitting the final 19-26, like if he had played, I don't know. Do they win? I don't know. I'm not going to blame the loss if Bolduc's in there on him, but you can't even blame him for the loss because he wasn't on the ice.
Right. And outside of that, just talking about Lane and the strategy, I guess, that the Islanders have implemented so far this season. I mean, outside of just the defense, taking up more minutes in the third because of that reason with Bolduc, I mean, is he just over-relying on, the goaltending and I suppose the defense in a sense to kind of just hang on to these games? Is that what we're seeing here? Because look, this is a team, before you even look at the games, they're built from the goaltending out. So yes, their strategy is literally to rely on their goaltending.
Every team too is like, you need their goaltenders to be good.
Well, of course, but this team is scripted to do that. But I think the question is, are they doing it too much? And does he have them playing a style of game that sort of thing is being exposed? You talk about the shots on goal against, you talk about the chances against, whether they're hitting the net or not. Is that because of the way Lane has this team playing, or the team itself just has a tough time, struggling to keep the puck on the other end of the ice?
I think it depends who you talk to, because talking to Lane, he said the biggest issue with these blown leads is that they're not making plays in their D zone when they have the chance to make plays. They're taking it too long. They're turning the puck over. But I kind of think Lane's overcoaching. Because you look at the lineup changes that he was making, and we know that one game where he makes the lineup changes and they blow that game. And also, too, in terms of, again, overcoaching, what did Bolduc show last night that he couldn't play any minutes in the third? Again, maybe he must have saw something because he's not doing that for fun. But at the same time, I think that's a game.
He would love to use him if he felt good about it.
But it was 3-1 going into the third that Bolduc played he played the first two periods and they didn't have an issue there. So I think he's just trying too hard. And I think the turnovers late in games in the own zone, I really do think it's just because he's got certain players just playing too many minutes to compensate. And I think, again, we've played hockey. The longer the game goes on, we talked to Wallstrom too, even with his ACL. He told us early on, like the first two periods were great, then the third he felt it. I mean, these guys are going 100 miles an hour every game. Playing a lot more minutes is going to weigh on you. It just is. You're seeing Matt Martin, he's barely playing minutes and things like that. Now that's different because of age. Bolduc's not getting tired. I just think this is a team where they're such strict with their structure and how fast they have to play. Not just fast speed, but quick passes, quick playmaking, that you're killing them in essence late in games, and they're just not making the plays that they usually make. Again, they're making those plays in the first and second period. That's not an issue. Right.
I guess the question is it going to take as long as a season to solve this issue as it kind of did for the slow starts last year, right? Like they need to solve this blown leads problem a lot sooner because they are going to play tougher teams, and the record may not look like 5-2-3 rather quickly if this continues to be an issue. So that's why I really want to see just how these games against these upcoming teams continue. They obviously failed the test against Carolina the other night. They got a point out of it, which is good. You want to take points out of teams who I guess are considered better than you in the standings, but you're at home, you're up 3-0, you got to close that game out. There's no doubt about that.
And I think things change depending on how long Pellick's out, because we saw year after year when he does get hurt. Sure, you could say Barzal is the most talented forward they have. Nelson's the best scorer. Pellick is the glue that holds this structure together. And it doesn't matter if Pellick maybe this year hasn't been playing the way he played a couple years ago or even last year coming back from the injury. It wasn't the same Pellick. You could just see the difference it makes when Pellick is not in the lineup. Again, this is a guy that he's so talented, and people forget that. Even if he's not playing to the level, a solid Pellick is still better than a majority of the guys in this league on the defense. And I think without him, you gotta change the way you play, because he's, again, a top pairing guy with Dobson too. It just changes everything if he's not there.
Yeah, no, for sure. And one guy I just want to know, because I think he deserves it, is Romanov. And these past, pretty much the whole season, but I've had games where I'm like, I barely even notice Romanov out there, and I'm like, yeah, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, that means he's just steady. He's doing what he's got to do. Every now and then he'll get the puck at the point. He'll throw a shot, and I'm like, oh, there he is. But I'm not noticing because he's playing his game. He's expected to be a defensive style guy, keep pucks out of the net, and I think he's been doing a great job. I think he just deserves a little bit of a applause there. That's all.
Being placed with Pulock was the best thing for his development, and honestly, credit to Pulock too.
Sure.
Because this is a guy where Pulock was very comfortable with Pellick, And you would think, okay, going from playing with the best defender on the team to a rookie or a couple years in the league where shaky stuff, where you have to be more responsible and everything. Like, credit to Pulak, because he was a guy that everyone expected to be a goal-scoring defenseman, provide the shot from the point. He's been a great defender.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, there's been some shaky times in OT and on 5-on-5, and it happens, but credit to him because he's kind of changed his game to fit the Islanders and what they've needed. And I think he's done a great job for Romanov. The same way you look at Pelech and Pelech playing with Dobson. I mean, listen, Dobson the last week or so, even now, just that goal he scored last night was crazy. That's the Dobson where he's got the confidence. And that confidence is, we see it on the negative side and the positive side of just how dangerous that can be.
No, Dobson figured it out like right on time, because I remember we were watching those preseason games and being like, uh-oh, not looking good here for Noah. But it's almost like he flipped the switch when the season started, and he continued to put the points up. But like you said, he looks great on the defensive side too for the most part. So hopefully he's finally found that right mindset and it keeps going, because I mean, he's on pace for an 82 point season right now. We'll see if that continues, but good stuff from him. But I think we're gonna leave what's on tap from the side. You guys can go online and you'll know what games are coming up. I want to go into Hero of the Week, but before we do, want to tell you about our friends at Isles Fix. Islanders Country, get your daily fix of Isles news, highlights, and analysis by subscribing to Isles Fix, the only Monday through Friday Islanders newsletter sent directly to your inbox. Sign up for free or become a paid subscriber for added benefits at islesfix.substack.com. So shout out to our friends at Isles Fix. And with that, Ed, cue the music. Ladies and gentlemen, when you hear this song, that means it's time for the Hero of the Week, brought to you by the Blue Line Deli and Bagels half-price hero, which this week is the Poke Check, featuring roast beef, turkey, ham, Swiss and American, lettuce and tomato, and mayo on a hero. Stop on into the Blue Line Deli and Bagels Huntington location for half off the Poke Check. So with that, Hero of the Week, I'm going to go with a guy that we mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show, and that is none other than Simon Holmstrom. I think this was his best week as an Islander. You got the 2 goals, so that makes it a little easier, but just outside of that, he looks like a different player to me. He's playing with confidence. You see the moves that he's making. He's finishing. Hopefully this is a sign of things to come. He gets the shorty last night in a losing effort, but another really nice goal for him. And that play between him and Fashion the other night was beautiful. He starts the play. He ends the play. And look, if guys like Oliver Wahlstrom aren't going to pull their weight and step up, maybe it's still the injury, but if that's not going to happen for the Isles, you need a guy like Simon Holmstrom to step up. So, Stefen, I pass it now on to you.
Well, I have to ask you, did you pick the poke check because he poked it in the neutral zone? Was that intentional?
You're a pretty clever dude, man. I did pick the poke check because of how Simon Holmstrom plays the game. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. First off, the defense this year by him in terms of his defensive play has been fantastic, which is why he played 50 games last year. And he told me last year, he goes, I need to bring more offense. I know it's in me. I have this. And this year early on, it was a struggle. But now, 2 goals in back-to-back games, 2 on O's.
Yeah.
And we're going to hear from Holmstrom in a second because I got a little interview with him. But what he is just the moves. That's the standard. It's one thing the shot. We know he has the shot. He just hasn't shown it enough. But the confidence to pull out moves, again, the one against the Capitals where he makes a sick move at the Islanders' blue line, then gets up the ice, and then cuts to the slot once he crosses the Capital zone, and Fasching made a great play to get up the ice on that. We haven't seen that. We really have not seen him do that at all this year. And then you see yesterday with just a heads-up read, see that loose puck, poke it to Pajot, open up and get open for that pass back and finish. I mean, he looks shocked when he scores, right? He looks absolutely shocked. But I just want to look at some stats here, and then we'll get to what he had to say. But he's got 8 takeaways on the year. That is second behind Barzal's 10. And the more important part, he's got 2 giveaways. That's it, which is towards the top of the Islanders. He played 14:40 last game. I think that's a career high. He was getting 4 and 4 ice time, 2. Yeah, and he had 6 goals in 50 games last year. He's got 3 goals in 9. And 2 of them have come in the last 2 games. And we'll get to Holmstrom right now, but I did ask him the other day, morning skate on Saturday before his goal. I just said, you focus so much on playing sound defensively. What does it mean for you to just contribute offensively to this team? And this is what he had to say.
It feels very good. I mean, that's me. So, I mean, it feels very good, and I know I got plenty more. So I just take a little bit at a time.
Yeah, and then I asked him too about the moves that he showed off and what goes into that, because again, we haven't seen that, and again, this is what he had to say.
No, I think it's just, like I said, the confidence, and I know it's back there, and I know I have it in my repertoire.
Arsenal repertoire,
yeah. So, I mean, you just got to, like I said before, there's time and place for it. And, I mean, I know I can show it more and more, so I'm really excited to do that and, help the team. It feels very good. I mean, that's...
Thank you. And, but the biggest thing was that he goes, "This is me." And that is the huge thing, because again, he told me last year, I can be an offensive guy for this team. And we said, okay, like, well, we got to see it. And now we're just seeing a guy that he could do this. Forget about everyone's talking about Wallstrom's going to have no chance. You can't take Holmstrom out of this line. If he's going to play that sound defensively, where he's one of the better defensive forwards on this team, and now he's going to contribute offensively. I got a piece tomorrow morning before practice, but I spoke to Barzal about it. I don't know if you guys saw the quote on Twitter. And he goes, he's going to be so good for us. He is sick. And he goes, he's got a long ways to go in terms of just getting there, but he is going to be sick for us. And, maybe 2 weeks ago, you're like, okay, what is Barzal smoking, right? But now it's like, we're seeing flashes of, wow, this guy could be such a strong two-way player for this team, playing, maybe he doesn't get power play minutes, but strong 5-on-5, contributing 20 goals a year, but then playing top minutes on the penalty kill and being, we talk about Pajot's line, and you still trust that line to be that shutdown line without Parise. And now you have Fasching on, like, Holmstrom could be a perfect bottom six guy for this team, where he could go out against the best the league has to offer, and there's trust. And we talked about trust with Bolduc. You're seeing, again, 4-on-4, Holmstrom's the guy out there. Right. That says something to me.
Well, the key word you used is confidence, and that's really what all of these young kids need to find. Usually that's kind of the threshold that these players need to kind of pass through before they really, develop into the players that, everybody expects them to be. Why they're a first-round pick, a second-round pick, whatever it is basically just getting their foot in the door into the NHL game and then realizing, hey, I can play this speed, I can play this game, and maybe Holmstrom is finally seeing that. But with that, we got a few minutes left here in the show, so why don't we kick it?
Well, Stefen, did you have a hero? Did we swap?
Are you
also Holmstrom?
We had no choice. Yeah, all right, Holmstrom
so let's
times
see,
2.
Let's see who's really behind here.
Oh, you didn't formally name him as your hero. You kind of just.
Simon Holmstrom is also my hero of the week.
Yeah. Well, for Sean, your pick was actually Kyle Palmieri. I hope you.
Oh man,
we're all having.
All right, you know what,
guys?
I'll take the heat on this one. I forgot to update the pictures. So when you look at Kyle Palmieri and whoever was Noah Dobson, I think on the other side, just imagine Simon Holmstrom. I forgot to change the pictures. That's on me. As much as I'd love to blame it on Ed, but it is my fault. So with that, let's go to questions brewing.
All righty.
It's time for Questions Brewing. So go ahead, ask us a question.
All right, Edzo, Jay, and Jake the Snake Roberts back there. How you fellas doing tonight?
Who's Jake? We're doing great.
Okay, very good, very good. So with that, ask us some questions.
Well, to start off the night, I'd like to wish a very happy birthday, Mr. Tom Boyle.
Happy birthday, T. Boyle.
Yeah.
All right, long-time listener, long-time watcher. Thanks a lot, buddy. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. We'll start off with a question from him. Who is out there to replace Lou and Lambert? All right. And his coaching staff. Who's out there?
You know what?
Is there anyone?
I'm glad you asked, Tom, because I kind of wanted to tie this into our discussion about Lane Lambert. Now, I know this isn't universal for everybody that's been complaining about Lambert, but heading into this season and talking about the summer, there was a lot of fans out there saying that Lou didn't do enough to make this team good enough to compete this season, right? So if that's the case, then doesn't that technically mean it doesn't matter what Lane does because the team wasn't good enough on the ice as it is? But if you're complaining Lane isn't doing a good enough job coaching, that means he has a good enough team on the ice to win, right? So it kind of just creates a conflict for me. Like it can't be both. You know what I mean? Like if Lane's not doing a good enough job for this team to win, and they're 5-2-3 by the way, then Lou must have done a good enough job to field a team that can win. So anyway, Tom, I know you get fired up about this. You love talking about firing and replacing guys. I don't think there's a chance in hell Lou gets replaced anytime soon, or at least until there's a summer where he decides to hang up the general managing skates. And as far as Lane goes, listen, I mean, we just talked about the flaws and the things that this team needs to improve to continue to have the success that they've had. Because, I mean, right now through 10 games, they're on a 106-point pace at this point. We all know that they're probably not going to continue that pace if they keep coughing up leads the way they have and they play this way against the better teams because they've had a pretty favorable schedule. What is it, 7 out of 10 games at home? Yeah. They've only played maybe 3 upper echelon teams now. So we really need to see what happens when they start playing those tougher teams and they got to clean up what's going on. But that being said, Lane's not getting fired at 5-2-3, and he's probably not getting fired at 5-5-3 either. There's going to be a little bit of a longer leash here. I will say this. You have a name floating around like Mike Sullivan, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are struggling over there in Pittsburgh. And if that continues to happen and Kyle Dubas decides to pull the plug and bring in his own guy, I think that's when Lou probably goes down to the study with a glass of scotch and thinks about...
For Sullivan.
Yeah. He thinks about, what he might do if that scenario pops up. I think you give that some real thought because, when Barry was fired that summer, the Penguins had a couple of early ousters in the playoffs, and I thought maybe Sullivan was a guy who you could see getting the boot, and I was like, well, you got to jump on that if that happens. I mean, Sullivan's a guy I would love to see coaching the Islanders at some point, and obviously that didn't pan out. The Pens hung on to him. They even extended him, I think, not too long after that. So we'll see what happens there, but neither one of these guys are going anywhere at the moment. But look, things can change. If these issues continue to show themselves and they start losing and tanking games and they go on a losing streak, we know this is a win-now team. Lou expects this team to win. We could see a change then, but right now I think things are staying the same.
Yeah, and don't forget, last week, Mr. Thomas Hickey said, don't ever rule it out that a coaching position would be out of the question.
There you go. So never say never.
We potentially have Hickey in the
never
future.
Say never.
We never say never. All right, so next up from DTMR 0729. Missing Pellick is huge, but is shortening the D bench to 5 the smart move?
No, I don't. I don't think
we covered it.
We did cover it, but I just think again, it's one thing to lose a guy. Maybe if there's an Aho who's not playing a lot of minutes. I mean, you're talking about your best defender who eats minutes, and now you have a guy you're essentially filling him with a guy that doesn't eat minutes. I'm not good at math, but that doesn't equate. And again, it's one thing you want to see Dobson play more minutes on one's hand because the more minutes he plays, the more offense he can provide. And everyone's for that. The problem is, again, if Pellick's out long term, that can catch up to a guy who's not used to playing that many minutes. And I think that's when you have an issue. If you had a veteran 7th D-man you brought in who's 8 minutes before in this league, or is just a reliable, sound defenseman, even to me like a Grant Hutton, where sure he's not going to stand out and do anything for you, but he's going to play sound defensively. You do have trust in him because he's not going to step at the wrong time. He's just going to make the plays and move the puck, and that's what they need. Then sure, but right now that's not what they're doing.
The problem is, until they're willing to risk sending a guy like Bolduc through waivers, which they probably won't, I don't think we're going to see a change.
Or LTIR.
That's the only thing. Yeah. If somebody ends up on the long-term injured list, that's when you could do something.
Because
like
IR, you could call up somebody. The problem is the Islanders still don't have enough cap space. IR doesn't clear them from the cap, so they don't have the cap space to bring up anybody anyway. So, like we said, they're going to have to ride Bolduc, and Lane's going to have to probably make a choice. Either I'm going to play him and trust him, or I really got to think about 13 forwards, because at this point, again, if you put a defensive forward in there, that will help the defense.
Ed.
All right. Next up from Mel Armenia 22.
Hi, Mel.
Would you rather have Lane behind the bench or Lou?
Interesting question.
Yeah,
well,
we all agree that was a great question.
I think we talked about it before, unless Sullivan is out there, firing Lane doesn't do much because you're not, John McLean, do you want him to be the head coach? He's been a head coach for Lou before, and then Lou fired him. You have Kowalski in his first year as the head coach in Bridgeport after being an associate down there. I doubt they're going to do that. Does firing Lane wake this group up? Maybe. Does Lou going behind the bench wake this group up? First off, I would love to see that. And that would probably fire these guys up, you would think, to an extent. But at the same time, I don't think Lou has any interest in doing that.
I just think we're so ahead of ourselves. Yeah. It is so funny to I get the reasons why, because we see what's happening on the ice. I get it, but it's just so comical to me that this team has a winning record, a better start, I'm sure, than they had last season.
Oh, it's one of their best starts in like 5 years.
Right. And again, the caveats that I mentioned before, but it's so funny to me that we're talking about this with a winning record in the thick of the top 3 of the Metro. But anyway.
But before we go to the next one, though, we talk about the Metro, right? And everyone's like, the Metro is the toughest division in hockey. The Caps have fallen.
Pete doesn't seem to think so.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. The Caps have fallen out. The Penguins, Columbus is bad. Philly's bad. You're talking about the Metro is Carolina, Devils, and then Rangers, Islanders. That's really what it is right now. So sure, maybe it's top heavy, but it's not like it's a 1 through 8 fight. You know, this is not like the Islanders are struggling right now, and they're still in a good spot in terms of the division. We saw last year, you know, the Islanders had a horrific January, But the reason they were able to stay in this race is because the Penguins, the Capitals, even the Panthers, and the wild card also had really bad Januaries. It wasn't because, again, if this Metro is that tough, the Islanders have never had a chance last year after their ridiculously bad January.
You're right. It's
so I think even if the Islanders aren't playing amazing and they're struggling, it's not like the Metro's on fire right now. The Rangers went on a winning streak for sure, but again, they'll come down to earth. They lost Adam Fox. Igor's
hurt. They
blew
a 3-goal lead last night.
Jack Hughes now is out, is week to week. I mean, everyone's got to keep in mind that the Islanders could be not playing their best hockey, but no one in that division really is playing at the top of the game. Maybe the Devils are the only team in the division that are playing to their true selves, and they just lost their best player.
Ed.
Yeah, and just a side note, Mel also wanted to know about the McAvoy suspension. I was under the impression that it was still in the process.
No, he got 4
games.
Yeah, he got 4 games. But I was going to say if you had any update on that.
Yeah, that was a hit to the head. Can't happen.
Blatant, intentional. Not representing Long Island well.
Yeah.
Yes. Next question from J.R. Adonis. Seems like a familiar name.
That is
honestly.
A familiar name.
Is that our very own Shoeless Jake?
Is that Shoeless Jake?
Is that Shoeless
Who let
Jake
him in the chat?
He's supposed to be working, not in the chat.
Right, I thought he was working.
Well, he asked a question.
Okay.
What do you think the timetable is with Pellick's injury, and how much does him being out of the lineup hurt this team?
So what I will say is he skated Saturday morning, and I am not a doctor, and he seemed to be like figuring out his hip a little bit. It was a hip on hip, so you got to think it's like Mayfield where it's just a bone bruise. Because if he had anything torn or whatever, he is not skating the day after. Like that's not happening. So to me, they're saying it's day to day, and I think maybe he misses 2 to 3 games. They're not going to rush this guy back. The last thing they need is to rush him into a game and have him be out long. Because we saw last year, I think he missed 22 games. But yeah, he is a catastrophic loss if Lane and the coaching staff don't have a defenseman they could trust to fill that hole.
Ed?
Next up from Thomas Panic. I love this question. So the wave during the second period of a close game, yay or nay?
Okay, this is a good one to end on. The wave is awful. The wave should be eradicated from all arenas and stadiums in sports. It's lame and embarrassing as Jay does. I wish we had a camera pointer to you guys right now. That would have been well worth the...
We're doing the wave.
They're still doing it.
In case you couldn't figure
That's great. Yeah, no, listen, this all falls on Sparky the Dragon.
And Niles, let it go.
Hold on a second. I talked about this on Twitter. This is... I was at the game, and I watched it from my seat, and Sparky was absolutely the leader of the wave on this. Niles was kind of there, just like, all right, I'm here. You know, I gotta keep...
Bystander.
He just got the job.
Bystander.
He was out for almost 30 years. In protest?
Niles was walking the streets of Long Island. He finally gets his job back, and you got Sparky dragging him into the crowd to start the wave. Obviously, he's going to cooperate because he wants to hang on to his job. I don't hold Niles responsible. Niles, if you're out there, don't worry about it. I know it was the Dragon. It's fine. But I have to say,
he's getting so angry.
Listen, man, this is close to my heart.
We got to take Sparky off the wall now.
I'm thinking about it.
At a protest.
I'm thinking about it. Listen, this is all part of my plan to get Sparky out and Nip in. That's what it's all about. But that's down the road. We'll see what happens there. But it went on for a while too. It really did. They kept going round and round. So I guess credit to the spirit of Islander fans for doing it. But I am anti-wave.
Yeah, I mean I can't stand it. I just think one, it's distracting. Honestly, it was happening last night, and I was watching the wave, and I'm like, oh, there's a hockey game being played that I'm supposed to be covering. But just get rid of it. I think it's the only arena that the wave happens.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I think it's more of a seventh inning
Knock the
stretch
building
baseball
down. It's
thing
over.
to do.
Just get rid of it. All right. Well, we got to wrap things up. So if we didn't get to your questions, ladies and gentlemen, we appreciate it. We'll try to get to them next week. But as always, thank you for contributing, getting into the chat. I am just fine. That was actually fun and very therapeutic for me. So that was nice. So with that, Ed, cue the music. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to give you a big thanks for tuning in to Hockey Night in New York here at twitch.tv/HockeyNightNY. Want to send a big thanks to Pete Blackburn of Bally Sports and the brand new hockey show, What Chaos. Huge thanks to Blue Line Deli and Bagel, located at 719 West Jericho Turnpike in Huntington and 217 Carlton Avenue in East Islip. Remember to check out the menu and order online at BlueLineDeli.com. The guys have been doing the wave ever since I started this rap here. Big thanks to Main Street Board Game Cafe, located at 307 Main Street in Huntington Village. Find out how to unplug your game at mainstboardgamecafe.com. Also, a huge thanks to Razor and Kniff, attorneys at law. Nobody likes going to court, but hey, if you have to, Razor and Kniff are ready to fight for you. Call 516-742-7600 for a free consultation. Also, of course, big thanks to Floored Media and Jay Belsky for turning on the lights here, turning on the cameras, and helping out our operation Hockey Night in New York. And folks, remember to rate, review, subscribe, hit us up on social at Hockey Night NY. For Stefen Rosner, I've been Sean Cuthbert. We've been Hockey Night in New York. We will see you next week.